Hello, I'd like to welcome you to this web seminar on the security clearance application called the SF86 and mistakes to avoid. Hi, my name's Alan Edmonds. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of California in the federal courts of the United States, and I've been practicing security clearance law and military law for over 30 years. My practice allows me to represent clients across this country. And we also have clients in Europe, in Asia, and in the Arabian Peninsula. It's my privilege to represent men and women who are seeking security clearances. And the purpose of this seminar today is to help you with the security application commonly referred to as the FS86. We get so many questions on this that I thought it was necessary to produce this video for you so that you would have the convenience of learning about the SF86 and avoiding all the mistakes that we see in our practice. The attorneys at the Edmonds Law Firm represent people across the United States, virtually in all 48 contiguous states, and we see the same mistakes being made by people that were well-intended when they fill out the SF86. It's an extremely important application, and it's the first critical step in your road to a security clearance. And I want you to know that that road is filled with danger and opportunities for mistakes. Most of the clients that we represent are very bright individuals. They're in a variety of professions. They're scientists, they're mathematicians, they're IT people, they're computer experts, they're engineers, and they're very, very bright. But when it comes to this application process, they make some common mistakes. So I hope you'll walk with me on this journey that we're about to take for the SF86. I want to begin by saying that the SF86 is the standard application that's used for a security position. So if you've applied for a security position and you are required by your employer to have a secret or a top secret clearance or a certain type of access, you're going to be given the standard Form 86 application. It usually appears on eQuip. You'll fill it out on your computer and you will send it in. There's also a standard Form 85, which is for non-sensitive positions. Now the SF85, as you can imagine, because it's for non-sensitive, it's a much briefer application, but there are some areas that you should know about. So I'm going to start out with the SF85 because many of you call me about that. And you have questions and you say, what do I have to talk about? What do I have to share with the government? And so I have a copy of the application here. And if you don't have one, call my office. If you want a application, you can get them from the internet. But if that's not possible, call my office at 800-481-2526. And we'll be happy to send you one. You really should look at the application and study it and go over it before you fill it out for your employer. And my law firm offers a service to guide individuals through this application process. The first thing that you should know about both applications, the SF85 and the SF86, is that all the information that the government asks is voluntary. That means you don't have to give the government the answers that they seek, but if you don't, you won't get your clearance. The government says if you don't answer these questions or complete the investigation in a timely manner, then it's going to prejudice or impact your application process. That's a nice way of saying you're not going to get the clearance. When I argue these cases in the courtroom, after my clients have filled out the application and the application has turned up some aspects or concerns, and we proceed through filing a response to which called the statement of reasons, and then proceeding to the courtroom, I often say to the judge that the case is one of a voluntary confession on the part of my client. In other words, these cases where a security clearance is denied is often a self-report. That means you furnish the information to the government, and the government used that information against you. So how you answer these questions is extremely important. And there's two cardinal rules that I want you to be aware of filling out the SF85 or SF86. And the first is tell the truth. A lot of people have difficult times answering these questions because they don't know what the questions are calling for. They aren't dishonest people, but they don't want to give more information than is necessary. And the SF86 application will instruct you that you have a three-part experience in this process. And the first part is filling out the application. The second part is an interview. You will be interviewed. And the third part is you may be polygraphed. So if you haven't been candid with your application answers, then the polygraph could cause you problems. When I handle these cases in the courtroom, it's much easier when my client has been truthful, even with some information that is not the best information from the standpoint of a security application. But I get to argue to the judge, my client's been absolutely honest in this process. The first rule then is tell the truth. The second rule is don't guess. Many of you struggle with these answers, especially in the area of substance abuse, alcohol abuse, or debt problems. And you struggle with answers to complete the application, and it becomes even more compound when you're interviewed by an investigator and they ask you for specific numbers or instances when you may have used alcohol, prescription drugs, or substance abuse, and I ask you for a specific number. How many times, for example, did you use marijuana in college? And they really put a lot of pressure on you to come up with an answer, and all you're doing in essence is guessing. And likewise, on these applications, don't guess. Do your research first. If you have an ultimate problem, call me, and we will help you get through the process. You should know that not only is this video service series available to you, and there are other videos on my websites for different aspects of the security clearance process, we also have books available for you, and they can all be ordered through my website. I've been doing this for over 34 years, and I love sharing my experience and my knowledge with you so that you can have a successful experience getting a security clearance. In my opinion, getting a security clearance has become much tougher and much more detailed than it used to be 20 or 25 years ago. People that got clearances 20 years ago are having trouble renewing those clearances today because the world has changed. The politics has changed. The administration has changed, and there's been a lot of history that has occurred that have warranted a heightened sense of security. So when you get these questionnaires, understand it's voluntary. You have to answer the questions, and you have to be truthful. There's something else I want you to know that's very, very important. When you go through the application, you're going to have questions, and it's going to require you to do some research. So do it. A lot of government cases that I handled at the hearing stage all involve your answers on the SF86 that were erroneous. Some people, for example, have not listed all of their addresses. And they didn't want to list the address because perhaps they rented an apartment at a certain location and didn't pay the rent. Or perhaps they used an address to gain benefits for college, voting situations. There's a myriad of reasons why people list different addresses from the actual address that they live in. And they think that if they omit the address, they can get by with it, and often that's not the case. The government can utilize all of its resources to seek information. I get questions and phone calls, will they contact my ex-spouse? And the answer is yes. Will they contact my neighbors? And the answer is yes. Will the government investigators contact my employers? And the answer is yes. How about your DMV records? Will they research your DMV records? And the answer is yes. They do a very thorough criminal background check, and they also do a public record check. So they're going to find out a great deal of information about you, and therefore your answers have got to be consistent. Another popular area that is of concern to people like you that fill out these applications is, what about my medical history? Can the government get my medical records? And the answer is yes. And in fact, a part of this application at the very end are authorizations for the release of medical information. The very last page here is a release that you have to sign. And some of my clients say to me, do I have to give them that information? And again, we go back to my earlier comments. If you don't provide the information, you're simply not going to get the clearance. And that leads into something else. I get a lot of calls from people that say, should I even try? And my response is, it depends on the job that you're seeking, your age, in other words, are you at the beginning of your career or the end, and what the type of information is that you're concerned about. Your privacy is respected in these applications. It's not going to be released to the public, but is available to other government agencies. So you should be aware of that. Virtually every aspect of your life is going to be exposed in this application or through an investigative interview or a polygraph. But does that mean you shouldn't apply? And my answer is, call me. I'll be happy to talk to you, and I'll tell you what I think the probability is for you getting that clearance. Generally, I say to most people, absolutely go through the process. Be honest, be as specific as you can, and go through the process. If there's a problem later on, call me, because we can deal with that problem. I have handled virtually every type of case conceivable that's contained in the instructions, which is 5220.6. And while we don't win every single case, we do win more than our share because of my experience, the experience of our attorneys, and our preparation. So don't be afraid about the SF86. But watch the areas of mistakes. And those areas we started to highlight, the others are contained in my book on the SF86 application process. But the mistakes that you want to avoid is omission of information, furnishing false information, and not being totally honest, because you never know if your application is going to be the one that precipitates a polygraph, and then you're going to have trouble getting through the polygraph. My office offers services throughout this whole process: filling out the application, reviewing the application, dealing with your investigative interview. We prepare people for the investigative interview, and we also prepare people that have been called to take a polygraph. So this process is difficult but not impossible, and I would not discourage you from seeking employment with the federal government. Getting a security clearance is a fantastic accomplishment, and the government does not expect every applicant to be perfect. In fact, the regulations talk about the whole person concept, meaning we're not just going to focus on the areas of your life that are somewhat questionable or where you have made mistakes. We're going to look at the whole person. We're going to look at your education. We're going to look at your work experience. We're going to examine your evaluations from employers and in the military, and we're going to look at the whole concept of you as a human being and determine if you're trustworthy. And my job for you is to make sure that you're presented in the proper light so that you can get that security clearance. Many people are very, very bright, but they misinterpret this process. They make common mistakes. And before I close, I have one other important area about the SF86 and 85 and the mistakes that people make. And that is that there is a page at the end of the application. It's page 9 on the SF86, and it's entitled Continued Space. And it allows you to expand on some of your answers. If you have an explanation for casual drug experimentation in college, if you have an explanation about a messy divorce where restraining orders resulted, or if you have an explanation about prescription drug use where you may have abused those prescriptions, you can fill that out and put it right here in the last section on page 9 of the SF86, and you should definitely do it. The caveat, or what I want you to be aware of, however, is don't get too wordy in those explanations. And that's a huge mistake that I see repeated numerous times by people that mean well when they fill out this application process. They talk too much. They talk too much in their written response, and they talk too much when they see the investigator. They get nervous, and they think that if they talk a lot, that they're going to make friends with the investigator. The same mistake is made by people like you that think you can go to these hearings by yourself, and then you get into the courtroom, and as a defense mechanism, you start talking. And you think, I'm going to make friends with that judge, I'm going to make friends with this prosecuting attorney, because I'm going to be totally cooperative, I'm going to tell them everything they want to know and more, and then you're shocked when you get the result that you failed and you didn't get your clearance. So there is a fine line about responding to answers in the SF86. You have to be truthful, you have to be detailed, but you do not want to give extraneous or unnecessary information. And likewise, when I prepare my clients for a hearing in the courtroom, I tell them to be very aware of the question and not to give long, run-on narrative answers, because that creates more problems than it solves. Well, this seminar on the SF86 is a first step for you. And you may have other questions, and if you do, I hope you call me. We have other seminars on specific guidelines contained in 5220.6, which is the DoD directive. We have a seminar just for foreign influence and foreign preference, and that is a very, very popular allegation that the government uses against individuals from foreign countries. And we also have a seminar coming on the guideline F of 5220.6, which is financial concerns. So watch the website, securityclearancedenial.com. Call me anytime, 800-481-2526. My staff is ready to answer your questions. And remember, experience makes the difference. Thank you.